In just the last few years, we've faced raging wildfires, devastating floods, sudden accidents that shake entire communities, and still many of us keep moving as if nothing happened. What if these events are not random? What if the universe is sending us a message? Pause, silence, let that sink in. When life gets harder, when storms arrive without warning, when tragedy strikes in the middle of an ordinary day, it feels almost unbearable. And yet, hidden inside those moments is a whisper, a reminder, something calling us back to what really matters. But here's the truth. Not everyone can recognize that whisper. It takes a certain kind of awareness to hear it. That's why I created this space, mindfulness, to explore how we can slow down enough to notice the messages life and the universe are giving us. Because the signs are there. The question is, are we awake enough to see them? Thich Nhat Hanh often said, "When we are present, even a fallen leaf can teach us the entire universe." If that's true, then what are wildfires, hurricanes, or sudden losses trying to teach us? Maybe they're not punishments. Maybe they're wake-up calls. Zen teachers like Jack Kornfield and Jon Kabat-Zinn often remind us that suffering isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of awareness. Just like a bell ringing in the distance, every challenge is an invitation to wake up. I remember a close friend of mine who once said, after surviving a near-fatal car accident, "It felt like the universe slammed the brakes for me because I wouldn't slow down myself." That moment transformed the way they lived. Suddenly, work deadlines didn't matter as much. Every sunrise felt like a gift. The accident didn't just break their car, it broke open their heart. Science is starting to echo what Buddhist teachers have known for centuries. When we go through hardship, our brain rewires itself if we meet the challenge with awareness. Psychologists call it post-traumatic growth. What looks like the end can actually become the beginning of something new. But here's the catch. If we're lost in distraction, endlessly scrolling, constantly running, we miss the lesson. We miss the message. And the universe, well, it has a way of sending the message louder until we finally pay attention. So I invite you right now to pause. Feel your breath. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Ask yourself, what is life trying to tell me at this very moment? Sometimes the loudest message comes wrapped in silence. And silence is where mindfulness begins. The hidden enemy. It's not the hurricane, not the wildfire, not the pandemic, not even the accident that changes the course of your life. Those events are real. They hurt, they shake us, but they are not the true enemy. The real enemy is the restless mind that never stops talking. Think about it. A storm can last a few days. A financial crisis might last months. But the chatter in your head, that can go on for years, even decades, if you never learn how to calm it. It's like carrying a wild horse inside your head, pulling you in every direction at once. You want peace, but the horse bolts. You want clarity, but the horse stomps dust into the air until you can't see a thing. Most Americans live this way without realizing it. We wake up already thinking about what's next. Emails, bills, kids, groceries, news alerts. We try to sleep, but the horse is still running, rehashing yesterday's arguments, worrying about tomorrow's deadlines. And when something painful happens, an accident, a loss, a disaster, that horse doesn't pause to comfort us. It panics. It throws us around, magnifying fear and despair until we feel like we can't breathe. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The mind can go in 1,000 directions, but on this beautiful path, I walk in peace. With each step, the wind blows. With each step, a flower blooms." What he's pointing to is simple but radical. The restless mind is not your master. You don't have to let it drag you around. But first, you have to see it clearly. Zen teachers in America, people like Sharon Salzberg, Tara Brach, and Jack Kornfield, often describe the restless mind as a storyteller, and not a very kind one. This inner narrator never stops. It says, "You're not good enough. You're running out of time. You'll never make it. Remember that mistake you made? Everyone's still judging you. If a friend spoke to you that way, you'd probably walk away." Yet we listen to this voice all day long as if it's the truth. Here's the irony. The disasters outside are not nearly as dangerous as the disasters inside. A wildfire can destroy your house, yes, but the wildfire of an untrained mind can burn through your entire life. It can steal your joy, your relationships, your health. It can keep you locked in fear long after the danger has passed. Psychologists at Harvard found something remarkable in a study. People spend almost 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing. Nearly half our life, lost in thought. And the kicker? The study showed that this mind-wandering made people less happy, no matter what they were thinking about. It didn't matter if they were planning a vacation or worrying about bills. The very act of being pulled out of the present moment was the thief of happiness. So what does this mean? It means the real enemy isn't the external storm. It's the storm inside. The voice that won't stop. The endless commentary. The worry. The regret. The comparing. The craving. And here's where mindfulness enters like a lantern in a dark cave. Because when you learn to notice the voice instead of blindly following it, something shifts. You realize, I am not the storm. I am the sky that holds the storm. The restless horse is still there, but you are not on its back anymore. You are standing on the ground, watching, breathing, centered. I remember a woman I met during a mindfulness retreat in California. She had lost her husband in a sudden accident. For months afterward, she was caught in what she called the loop, the mind replaying the moment, the what-ifs, the self-blame. She said it felt like being dragged by wild horses every single day. But then, little by little, with the guidance of teachers like Jon Kabat-Zinn, she learned to sit, breathe, and notice the loop instead of drowning in it. One evening during the retreat, she looked up with tears in her eyes and said, "The pain is still here, but the horse is calmer. And for the first time in months, I can breathe again." This is the hidden enemy we're talking about. Not the loss itself, but the mind's reaction to loss. Not the storm itself, but the inner storm that follows. And if we don't recognize this enemy, we end up fighting the wrong battles, blaming the world, blaming others, blaming ourselves, when the real battle is happening within. Even the Buddha saw this clearly. His teaching wasn't about erasing suffering from the world. He said, suffering will always exist. But he also said there is a path to the end of unnecessary suffering, the suffering we create with our restless mind. That's the part we can transform. If you've ever tried to meditate, you know the restless mind well. You sit down, close your eyes, and within seconds it's shouting, "This is boring. Did I reply to that email? What's for dinner? Why is this so hard?" That's the wild horse. That's the hidden enemy. And yet, every time you notice it and return to your breath, you are training the horse. You are not suppressing it, not fighting it, just gently holding the reins. Slowly, the horse learns to walk beside you instead of dragging you. The most powerful thing I've learned from mindfulness teachers, both from Asia and from right here in America, is this. You don't have to kill the restless mind. You just have to see it. The moment you notice, thinking, you are free, even for a second. That second of awareness is stronger than hours of being lost in thought. So let me ask you, what's pulling your horse right now? Is it fear of the future, regret about the past, anxiety about things you can't control? Whatever it is, recognize that the enemy is not out there. The enemy is the untrained mind inside. And the beauty is, once you recognize it, you can begin to tame it. With a single breath, with a single step, with a single moment of awareness. Because sometimes, the universe doesn't just send messages through disasters or accidents. Sometimes the message is closer than that. Sometimes the message is simply, slow down, breathe, come home to yourself. Turning point. Every journey has one. That moment when something cracks open, when life as you knew it stops working, and you realize, I can't keep living this way. For many of us, that moment doesn't come in a peaceful retreat center. It comes in the middle of chaos. For me, the turning point came during a time when everything looked fine from the outside. I had a job, friends, a busy life. But inside, I was unraveling. I woke up every morning with a knot in my stomach, already worried about things that hadn't even happened. At night, I lay in bed scrolling through news feeds, convincing myself the world was falling apart and I had no control. My mind was a storm that never stopped. And even when good things happened, I couldn't enjoy them because the wild horse inside was always galloping to the next worry. One evening after a particularly stressful week, I was driving home. My chest felt tight, my thoughts were racing. And then, out of nowhere, I had to pull over. My hands were shaking. Tears came, not because something terrible had just happened, but because I realized I didn't know how to be okay anymore. I wasn't living. I was surviving. That was the moment I remembered a book a friend had once given me. It sat untouched on my shelf. Peace is Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh. I had brushed it off, thinking mindfulness was some kind of slow, boring ritual for people who had more time than I did. But that night, desperate and exhausted, I opened it. The very first page spoke to me. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in the present moment, I know this is a wonderful moment. I remember laughing through my tears. A wonderful moment? Are you kidding me? My life felt anything but wonderful. And yet, for the first time, I tried. I put the book down. I closed my eyes. I inhaled. I exhaled. Just one, and for a brief, fragile second, something shifted. The knot in my stomach loosened. The storm paused. There was space. It wasn't dramatic. Fireworks didn't go off. Angels didn't sing. But in that one breath, I tasted something I hadn't felt in years. The possibility of peace. That tiny moment became the crack in the wall I had built around myself. And here's the thing. I am not unique. Over and over again, people describe their turning point in similar ways. It's rarely glamorous. It's often ordinary. A breath, a walk, a tearful night when you finally stop fighting and just listen. Sharon Salzberg, one of the most beloved meditation teachers in America, often shares that she began meditating in college after a childhood filled with loss and instability. She didn't go looking for enlightenment. She was simply trying to find a way not to drown in suffering. And mindfulness became her lifeline. Jon Kabat-Zinn, a scientist at the University of Massachusetts, wasn't trying to start a movement when he began teaching mindfulness to patients in chronic pain. He simply saw people suffering with no relief and wondered, what if we taught them how to turn toward their experience instead of running away from it? That idea, radical at the time, has now touched millions of lives across the US. Jack Kornfield tells a story about his own turning point when he returned from years as a Buddhist monk in Thailand. He thought his training would protect him from suffering, but when he came back to America, he was overwhelmed by culture shock, loneliness, and grief. And yet, instead of abandoning his practice, he realized, this is where mindfulness truly lives, not in the monastery, but in the middle of everyday pain. The pattern is clear. The turning point always arrives when we stop running, when we admit the restless mind isn't working. The distractions, the busyness, the constant fight, it's not working. And in that pause, we become open to something new. I think about a woman I once met at a mindfulness workshop in Boston. She was a nurse, working long shifts during the height of the pandemic. She described her breaking point, standing in a hospital hallway, exhausted, watching another patient being wheeled into the ICU. She said her body felt like it would collapse, and then suddenly, she remembered a phrase she had read from Thich Nhat Hanh. Breathing in, I know I am alive. Breathing out, I smile to life. She said she didn't believe it at first, but she tried. Just one breath. And in that breath, she found enough strength to keep going. Later, she told me that moment changed everything. She still faced the same stress, the same losses, but she had discovered a doorway inside herself that no crisis could take away. That's what the turning point looks like. Not a change of circumstances, but a change of relationship with yourself. And here's what neuroscience now confirms. The brain is plastic. It rewires. When you catch the restless mind and return to the present, even for a moment, you're literally carving a new pathway. The more you practice, the stronger that pathway becomes. Over time, what was once chaos becomes clarity. What was once anxiety becomes presence. The Buddha described this so beautifully 2,600 years ago. He said our minds are like muddy water. If you keep stirring it, it never clears. But if you let it rest slowly, the mud settles and the water becomes transparent. For me, that one night in the car was the moment I stopped stirring. For the nurse in Boston, it was a breath in the hospital hallway. For Sharon Salzberg, it was the longing for stability in a chaotic childhood. Different stories, same truth. The turning point is always found in stopping. And the question for you is simple. Have you reached yours? Have you reached that moment when you realize you can't keep running? When you whisper to yourself, there must be another way? If you have, then know this. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply standing at the doorway of transformation. The turning point is not the end of the story. It's the beginning. So tonight, when the restless horse starts galloping in your head, I invite you to pause. Just one breath, just one moment. It might not feel like much, but trust me, it can change everything. Because sometimes the universe doesn't send us a message with thunder or lightning. Sometimes the message is as quiet as a breath. And if you are listening, that's enough to change your life. That's what mindfulness is. Not a pill, not a gadget, not a subscription you have to buy. It's invisible, always available, and it lives inside you right now. The problem is, most of us forget it's there. Think of it this way. If you were born with a treasure chest inside your home, but no one ever told you where it was, you might spend your whole life chasing money, possessions, or security, never realizing the real treasure was already within arm's reach. That's what mindfulness is. It's the treasure chest hidden inside your own breath, your own awareness, your own presence. And when you find it, you realize, this is the weapon that can calm the restless horse in my mind. Thich Nhat Hanh used to say, our true home is in the present moment. That's not poetry, it's practical wisdom. Because when you know how to come home to yourself, you carry peace with you everywhere. Even in chaos, even in heartbreak, even in the face of disaster. So what does this secret weapon look like in daily life? It comes down to 3 simple keys. 3 reminders that anyone can use, anytime, anywhere. Key number 1, breath is the anchor. Imagine being on a boat in a storm. The waves are high, the wind is howling, and you feel like you're going to be tossed overboard. What's the first thing you look for? An anchor. Something steady, something that holds you in place even when the world is shaking. Your breath is that anchor. It's always here. It's free. You don't have to order it on Amazon or wait 3 business days for delivery. Right now, in this very moment, you can feel it. Inhale. Exhale. That's your anchor. I remember during my own turning point when I felt like I was drowning, the breath was the only thing that brought me back. At first, I thought it was too simple, too easy. How could just noticing my breath make a difference? But the more I practiced, the more I realized, it's not the breath itself that changes everything. It's the awareness of it. It's the act of pausing long enough to realize, I'm still here. I'm alive. This moment is enough. Jon Kabat-Zinn once said, as long as you are breathing, there is more right with you than wrong with you. That line has carried countless patients through chronic pain, depression, even cancer. Because no matter what else is happening, if you can feel your breath, you can come home. You can anchor yourself in the middle of the storm. Key number 2. Now is the only time we own. We spend so much time living everywhere except here. Regretting yesterday, worrying about tomorrow. But the truth is brutally simple. The past is gone, the future is not here yet, and the only time we ever truly own is now. The Buddha once said, Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. That's not about ignoring your responsibilities. It's about realizing that the power to live, to love, to transform only exists here and now. I'll never forget a story Jack Cornfield told about a man who came to a retreat after surviving cancer. The man said, "I used to rush through everything, meals, conversations, even vacations, always thinking about the next thing. But when cancer came, I realized the next thing might never arrive. So I started to taste my food. I started to really listen when people spoke. I started to watch the sunset instead of checking my phone. And that's when I finally began living." That's the power of the present moment. And you don't have to wait for a diagnosis or a crisis to discover it. You can discover it right now, simply by choosing to be here. When I catch myself spiraling into regret or anxiety, I ask a simple question: what is true right now? Usually the answer is simple. I'm safe. I'm breathing. I'm alive. The story in my head might be chaotic, but the moment itself is bearable. And that realization is like flipping a switch. It doesn't erase the problem, but it brings me back to the only place where solutions can be found: this moment. Key number 3, awareness transforms pain. Here's a truth that's hard to accept. Pain is part of life. Loss, sickness, disappointment, none of us escape these things. But suffering, the kind that lingers and poisons everything, that comes from how we relate to pain. And this is where awareness becomes the ultimate weapon. Thich Nhat Hanh taught that when we hold our pain with gentle awareness, it begins to change. Just like holding a crying baby. If you ignore the baby, the cries get louder. If you fight the baby, it cries harder. But if you hold it gently, rocking it with compassion, the baby slowly calms. Our pain is the same. Awareness is the loving arms we wrap around it. Tara Brach, another great teacher in America, often speaks about the sacred pause. When we pause long enough to notice, this is grief, this is fear, this is anger, we stop being trapped by it. We create space. And in that space, healing begins. I met a man once who had lost his son in an accident. He told me the grief nearly destroyed him. For years, he drowned it in alcohol, anger, and avoidance. But when he finally began to sit with it, just sit, breathing, crying, letting the grief exist instead of running, something softened. He said, "The pain didn't disappear, but it stopped defining me. I could remember my son with love instead of only despair." That's the power of awareness. It doesn't erase pain. It transforms the way we carry it. Science is catching up to this truth. Brain scans show that when people practice mindfulness, the areas of the brain responsible for stress and fear quiet down, while the areas responsible for empathy and emotional regulation grow stronger. In other words, awareness literally rewires your brain to hold pain differently. So these 3 keys, breath, now, awareness, may seem small, but they are revolutionary. They are the secret weapon hidden inside you. And here's the beauty. You don't need hours of practice to start. You don't need to be a monk. You don't need to retreat to the mountains. You can use this weapon in traffic, in a meeting, in the middle of an argument, or in a hospital room. Just one breath can anchor you. Just one moment of presence can wake you up. Just one pause of awareness can soften your pain. The great teachers, from the Buddha to Thich Nhat Hanh to modern voices like Sharon Salzberg, are all pointing to the same truth. The treasure chest is already inside you. The secret weapon is already yours. The question is, will you use it? Because the restless horse, the hidden enemy, isn't going away on its own. It will keep running, keep pulling, keep exhausting you, until you remember you have the reins in your hand. And the reins are simple. Breath, now, awareness. That's the secret weapon. The mini experience. This is where all the words, all the stories, all the science meet the only thing that truly matters, your own direct experience. Because let's be honest, listening to teachings is inspiring, reading books is helpful, hearing about monks or scientists is fascinating. But unless you taste mindfulness for yourself, it will always stay in your head like an interesting theory. The magic begins only when you pause, right here, right now, and feel it in your own body. Thich Nhat Hanh often said, mindfulness is not an idea, it is a practice, and the practice is always available in the present moment. So let's do this together, right where you are, whether you're sitting in a chair, lying on your couch, or standing in line with your phone in hand. Pause. Don't change anything. Don't try to make yourself calm. Just pause. Now, gently close your eyes if you feel comfortable. If not, simply soften your gaze. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Feel the air filling your chest. Now exhale gently through your mouth, like a quiet sigh. Do that again. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Now bring your attention to just one thing, the sensation of your breath. Notice the coolness as it enters. Notice the warmth as it leaves. You don't have to breathe a special way. Just notice what's already happening. For the next 30 seconds, let your breath be your anchor. If your mind wanders, which it will, don't fight it. Just notice, thinking, and then kindly return to the breath, like guiding a child back to safety. Let's take 3 breaths together now. Inhale. Exhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Pause. How do you feel? Maybe your mind is a little quieter. Maybe your shoulders dropped without you realizing. Maybe nothing dramatic happened, but for a tiny moment, you were actually here. That's the point. This practice is not about escaping or achieving. It's about arriving. I remember the first time I tried this in a group setting. I was at a retreat led by Sharon Salzberg, one of the pioneers of mindfulness in America. She guided us through a simple breathing meditation, just like the one you just did. I went in skeptical. I thought, okay, 30 seconds of breathing. What difference can that make? But after a few breaths, I noticed something strange. The endless chatter in my mind softened. I wasn't worrying about the emails waiting for me. I wasn't replaying old mistakes. For the first time in a long time, I was simply here. And the relief of that was enormous. That's why this mini experience matters. It proves that mindfulness isn't abstract. It's not only for monks in monasteries or yogis on mountaintops. It works instantly, in the most ordinary moments of life. Jon Kabat-Zinn used to tell his patients, you don't have to like the practice, you just have to do it. Many of them came to him in pain, back pain, migraines, cancer, depression. They weren't looking for spirituality, they were looking for relief. And after just a few minutes of mindful breathing or body awareness, many of them reported a shift. The pain was still there, but their relationship to it had changed. And that changed everything. Even a 10-second pause can be powerful. I once met a high school teacher in New York who shared a story. Every morning before class, she and her students would take one mindful breath together. Just one. At first, the students laughed, rolled their eyes, treated it like a joke. But weeks later, one student came up to her and said, I thought this was stupid at first. But yesterday, when my mom and I were fighting, I went to my room, closed the door, and took that one breath, and it actually helped me not say something I'd regret. That's the proof. 10 seconds can change the direction of a life. Now, maybe you tried the little practice a moment ago and thought, okay, but my mind didn't stop. I still had thoughts. That's not failure. That's the practice. Mindfulness is not about emptying your mind. It's about noticing what's there without getting swept away. Even if you noticed your thoughts 100 times and returned to the breath 100 times, that's success. Each return is a rep at the gym for your awareness. And like any muscle, the more you train, the stronger it gets. Here's another experiment we can try right now. Open your eyes. Look around the room you're in. Choose one object, maybe a coffee cup, a book, a plant. For 10 seconds, really notice it. Its shape, its color, the way the light touches it. Just notice. That's mindfulness too. Simple, ordinary, profound. Because when you really notice, the restless horse inside slows down. The voice in your head quiets. You land in the only place you can actually live, here. Sometimes people ask me, but how can something so small make a difference when life is so hard? And my answer is always the same, because the present moment is the only place transformation ever happens. Think about it. Healing doesn't happen in yesterday. Growth doesn't happen in tomorrow. Both happen in the choices you make right now. And mindfulness is the practice of choosing presence over and over again. The Buddha compared the mind to a monkey, always swinging from branch to branch. But he also taught that with steady practice, the monkey can learn to rest, and even a single moment of rest can change the flavor of your entire day. I often tell people, mindfulness is like tasting water when you're thirsty. You don't need a whole glass to know it works. Just a sip, and your body knows. Just a breath, and your mind knows. So here's my invitation to you. Don't just read these words. Try it. Try pausing for 30 seconds before your next meal. Try taking 3 mindful breaths before answering the phone. Try noticing one object in your room as if you're seeing it for the first time. These tiny experiments are the proof, because if 10 seconds can bring a moment of peace, imagine what 10 minutes a day could do. Imagine what a week, a month, a year of practice could transform. This is not theory. This is reality. And the only way you'll believe it is if you taste it for yourself. So let's pause once more right now. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Smile gently, even if it feels strange. That smile is not denial of suffering. It's the recognition that in this moment you are alive, you are breathing, and that is enough. Notice, did your mind feel a little quieter? Even for just 10 seconds? That's mindfulness. That's the doorway. That's the proof. The invitation. By now, you've tasted it. Maybe just for 10 seconds, maybe for a few breaths, but you've seen for yourself that peace is not somewhere out there. It's here, already within you. And that small glimpse leads to the bigger question. What if this wasn't just a moment? What if you could live this way every day? That's the invitation. To see mindfulness not as an occasional trick to calm down when life is overwhelming, but as a way of living. A path. A practice that holds your hand through joy and sorrow, through love and loss, through every messy, beautiful chapter of your life. I want to share something personal with you. When I first began practicing mindfulness, I treated it like medicine. I would only use it when things were unbearable, when anxiety spiked, when stress crushed me, when grief was too heavy. I'd pause, breathe, feel some relief, and then rush back into the chaos. Mindfulness was like aspirin for a headache. Take it when needed, forget it when the pain subsides. But then one day, I realized I was missing the real gift. I was still waiting for life to get better before I could be at peace. I was still hoping the storms would stop. And then I remembered the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. Peace is present right here and now, in ourselves and in everything we do and see. We only need to be awake to it. That's when it clicked. Mindfulness is not just for emergencies. It's for life itself. It's for washing the dishes, walking the dog, hugging your child, drinking a cup of coffee. It's for being fully alive, not half asleep, in the only time we ever have, now. And here's the truth. I don't always succeed. I still get lost in thought. I still worry about the future. I still argue with myself in the shower. But the practice has given me a path to return, a home. And the more I return, the more life opens up. Not because the storms disappear, but because I'm no longer lost inside them. Jack Kornfield tells a story about a man who asked him, "How do I keep practicing when I keep getting lost?" Jack's answer was simple. Getting lost is part of the practice. What matters is that you keep coming back. That's the heart of this invitation. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to return again and again. Sharon Salzberg often speaks about her early days meditating in India. She said she thought she was failing constantly because her mind wandered every few seconds. Finally, her teacher looked at her and said, "Every time you come back, that is a moment of awareness. That is the practice." She realized that mindfulness isn't about staying in perfect concentration. It's about the gentle, persistent act of returning. That's what transforms us. So here's the invitation I want to extend to you. What if you made mindfulness part of your daily life, not just something you try once in a while? What if, instead of reaching for your phone the moment you wake up, you took 3 mindful breaths? What if, before your next difficult conversation, you paused and placed your hand on your heart? What if, instead of waiting for a crisis, you practiced presence now, so that when the crisis does come, as it always will, you are already anchored? Science shows that even 10 minutes a day of mindfulness practice can rewire your brain, lowering stress, boosting emotional resilience, and even strengthening your immune system. But beyond the research, there's something deeper. Mindfulness gives you back your life. It invites you to stop missing the moments that matter most. I once spoke with a father who told me his biggest regret was that he was never truly present when his children were young. He was always working, always stressed, always distracted. Now that his kids were grown, he realized he had been physically there but mentally absent. With tears in his eyes, he said, "I wish I had known then what I know now, that every hug, every laugh, every bedtime story was precious." Mindfulness, he said, taught him to finally show up, not only for his kids, but for himself. That's the invitation, to wake up before it's too late. The Buddha compared life to a flash of lightning in the night sky, brilliant, brief, and gone in an instant. Mindfulness is the practice of actually seeing that flash, of savoring it, of not letting your one precious life slip by unnoticed. Tara Brach calls this radical acceptance. It's not about giving up, it's about opening fully to reality as it is, and in that opening, discovering a freedom you never knew was possible. When you accept the moment as it is, you stop fighting with life. And when you stop fighting, you find peace. So here's my question to you. If one breath could give you a glimpse of peace, what could a daily practice give you? If 10 seconds could calm your mind, what could 10 minutes each morning create for your entire day? This is why so many people, from CEOs in Silicon Valley to nurses in hospitals to soldiers returning from war, are embracing mindfulness. It's not about religion. It's not about sitting cross-legged for hours. It's about reclaiming your humanity. It's about learning to live with presence, compassion, and clarity in a world that constantly pulls you away. And this invitation is not just mine. It's the invitation of every great teacher, from the Buddha 2,600 years ago, to Thich Nhat Hanh walking barefoot through a garden, to modern voices like Jon Kabat-Zinn, Sharon Salzberg, Tara Brach, and Jack Kornfield. They are all saying the same thing. Wake up. Be here. Life is too precious to miss. So I invite you now, don't wait for the next disaster, the next heartbreak, the next crisis to wake you up. Begin today. Begin with one breath. Begin with one moment of awareness. Because if 1 minute can shift your state, imagine what a daily practice could do for your entire life. That's the invitation. A path, a practice, a homecoming. And the door is open right now. The cinematic ending. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You wake up tomorrow morning. Instead of grabbing your phone, instead of rushing into emails and headlines and bad news, you simply breathe. The sunlight is soft on your face, the air feels fresh in your lungs, and there's a quiet smile forming, not because everything is perfect, but because you are here, alive, awake. You walk to the kitchen, make your coffee, and for the first time in a long time, you actually taste it. You don't drink it while scrolling or planning the day. You drink it as though it were the very first cup of coffee you've ever had. That warmth, that aroma, that simple joy, it feels like a small miracle. Later, someone cuts you off in traffic. Normally, you'd explode with frustration. But today, you breathe. You notice your hands gripping the wheel, your heart racing, your anger rising. And instead of being dragged by it, you just watch it, like clouds drifting across the sky. In a few moments, it softens, and suddenly, you are free. That's mindfulness. It's not about escaping life. It's about meeting life fully. It's about walking through storms with a steady heart. It's about remembering, as Thich Nhat Hanh said so beautifully, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. And here's the cinematic part. Imagine looking back at your life, decades from now, and realizing you truly lived. You didn't spend it half asleep in worry, regret, or distraction. You tasted it. You loved deeply. You forgave. You smiled at strangers. You cried fully. You breathed with awareness. You were awake for it all. That is a life well lived. Jon Kabat-Zinn once said, "You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf." Life will always bring waves. Loss, change, uncertainty, even natural disasters, and sudden accidents that shake us to the core. But the invitation of mindfulness is not to wait for the waves to disappear. It is to learn how to stand tall, breathe deeply, and ride them with grace. Tara Brach calls this the freedom of presence. When you are present, even suffering becomes workable. Pain turns into wisdom. Loneliness turns into connection. Ordinary moments turn into sacred treasures. And maybe, just maybe, this is the message the universe has been whispering to us all along. Through the storms, through the pandemics, through the chaos and the noise, wake up. Don't miss your life. So here, as we close, I invite you once more. Take a breath right now. Feel your chest rise. Feel the air enter. Feel your body alive in this very moment. That's all you need to return home. That's all you need to begin again. Because this is not a dream. This is mindfulness. This is life, fully lived. And if you want to keep walking this path with me, if you want daily reminders, practices, and stories that help you return again and again, that's why I created this space, the Mindfulness Channel. A place for us to practice together, to remember together, to live fully together. So let's begin with one breath, with one step, with one life,